Welcome to your heritage. As those of you know who have followed this program and validated our documentation, the Anglo-Saxon, Celtic, Scandinavian, Germanic, and kindred peoples are God's family Israel, now known by other names as foretold by the prophets. Throughout the period covered by the Bible, God has been dealing with our race, whose commission it is to establish here in the earth a government based upon the laws of God as an example to the heathen nations who currently worship other gods. Our ancestors were no more loyal to Yahweh, the Most High God of Israel, than we are today, because they had the same carnal minds which we have, and the carnal mind is enmity with God. Romans 8:7. The reason that most Christians turn away from the true faith and involve themselves with a denominational religious system is because in the denominational system they hear a philosophy with which their carnal minds can be comfortable. They don't care what God's will is. This is the way God ought to be doing things, and if He isn't, that is His tough luck. As a consequence of this rebellious attitude, God's people have been in trouble ever since Eve swallowed Satan's lie. Centuries ago, God spoke through the mouth of the prophet Isaiah, saying, "Stay yourselves and wonder. Cry ye out and cry. They are drunken, but not with wine. They stagger, but not with strong drink. For the Lord hath poured out upon you the spirit of deep sleep, and hath closed your eyes. The prophets and your rulers, the seers hath He covered. Wherefore the Lord said, Forasmuch as this people draw near me with their mouth, and with their lips do honor me, but have removed their heart far from me, and their fear toward me is taught by the precept of men, therefore, behold, I will proceed to do a marvelous work among this people, even a marvelous work and a wonder, for the wisdom of their wise men shall perish, and the understanding of their prudent men shall be hid." Isaiah 29, verses 10 to 14. Today, Mr. Bertrand L. Comparet, the well-known attorney and Bible scholar, explodes a popular myth which in your blindness you have accepted. His subject is, the Bible is not a Jewish book. Mr. Comparet.
The statement is commonly made, even by those who should know better, that we Christians owe a debt to the Jews, for we got our Bible and our religion from them. While many people have been deceived into believing this, it is completely false. Part of the mistake comes from the complete confusion in the minds of nearly all people as to just what they mean by Jew. Are they referring to people of a certain race or people of a certain religion? For the two are not the same. There are in Africa today some pure-blooded Negroes who are Jews by religion. And there are in China today some pure-blooded Mongolians who are Jews by religion. Likewise, there are some people today who are of the racial stock of the Jews, but who have been converted to other religions, such as Ben Gurion, for years premier of the Jewish nation in Palestine, who is by religion a Buddhist. First, let's consider the claim that we got our Bible and our religion from the Jews as meaning Jews by religion. Now, it's certain that we did not get the New Testament from them, for it condemns the Jewish religion throughout all the New Testament. But did we get the Old Testament from them? No, for several reasons. In the first place, no Jew by religion existed before the return from the Babylonian captivity shortly after 536 B.C. Their great historian Josephus, speaking of the time when they started to rebuild Jerusalem after their return from Babylon, says this, "So the Jews prepared the work. That is the name they are called by from the day that they came up from Babylon." The only books of the Old Testament that were written after the return from Babylon are parts of Kings and Chronicles, Ezra and Nehemiah, all of these four historical rather than doctrinal, and Haggai, Zechariah, and Malachi. In none of these do the Jews receive anything but rebuke for their wickedness, for their apostasy from the true religion of the Old Testament. The late Rabbi Stephen F. Wise, formerly Chief Rabbi of the United States, said this, "The return from Babylon and the introduction of the Babylonian Talmud mark the end of Hebrewism and the beginning of Judaism." The learned rabbi was correct in distinguishing the true religion of the Old Testament as Hebrewism, for it was the religion of the real Hebrews who were not Jews at all. Judaism, the religion of the Jews, is, as the learned rabbi says, based upon the Babylonian Talmud, which contains the supposed oral law, which was never reduced to writing as part of the Bible, and which gradually gained greater force among the Jews than the written law in the Bible, with which it often conflicted. In Jesus' day, the Babylonian Talmud was known as the tradition of the elders. This is why Jesus Christ told the Jews in Mark 7, verses 6 to 13, "Well has Isaiah prophesied of you hypocrites, as it is written, This people honors me with their lips, but their heart is far from me. Howbeit, in vain do they worship me, teaching for doctrines the commandments of men. For laying aside the commandment of God, that ye may keep your own tradition, and making the word of God of no effect through your tradition which ye have delivered." Again in Matthew 22, verse 29, he told them, "Ye do err, not knowing the Scriptures, nor the power of God." And in Matthew 23, verse 23, he said to them, "Woe unto you, scribes and Pharisees, hypocrites, for ye pay tithe of mint and anise and cumin, and have omitted the weightier matters of the law, judgment, mercy, and faith." This was the religion of the Jews. As the learned Rabbi Stephen F. Wise said, it was Judaism as distinguished from Hebrewism, which was the real religion of the Old Testament. Certainly, Christianity took nothing from any Jewish religion, for we've never taken any part of Christianity from the Talmud. Naturally, the Jews didn't give us any part of the New Testament either, for it completely repudiates and condemns the Jewish religion of the Talmud. Well, then, can it be said that we got our Bible or our religion of Christianity from men of the Jewish race? No, it cannot. It can be clearly proved, both out of the historic books of the Bible and out of the only thorough history of the times written by one living when the facts were still well known, which is Josephus' Antiquity of the Jews, that the Jews were a people distinct and separate from God's people Israel, although living among them. The Jews were the Canaanite peoples who lived in Palestine before Israel entered the Promised Land, and who were not driven out, but were allowed to remain in the land while paying heavy tribute taxes. And the half-breed intermixture from some intermarriage between the Canaanites and the Israelites. Also, a portion of the Jews were the Canaanite mixture Edomites. The prophets who wrote the books of the Old Testament, on the other hand, were all of pure Israelite stock, from one or another of the 12 tribes of Israel. For example, Moses, Jeremiah, Ezekiel, Habakkuk, Haggai, and Zechariah were of the tribe of Levi. Joshua and Samuel were of the tribe of Ephraim. Isaiah, Daniel, and Zephaniah were of the house of David, out of the tribe of Judah. Jonah was of the tribe of Zebulun, and Hosea was of the tribe of Issachar. When the Assyrians conquered and deported the people of the 10 northern tribes, who had kept the name Israel, the Bible records that the Assyrians brought other people in from the Assyrian Empire and settled them in Samaria in place of the Israelites they had deported. But Samaria is only the southern half of the territory occupied by these 10 northern tribes. The northern half of their territory was Galilee, and this was left vacant. When the kingdom of Judah was later deported to Babylon for their 70 years' captivity, their land was left with very little population. And while they were gone, the Edomites, who were descendants of Esau mixed with Canaanite people, were forced out of their own land by pressure of invading Arab tribes, and they moved westward into the vacant lands of Judah, occupying the southern half of the former kingdom of Judah. Therefore, when a portion of the 2 tribes of Judah and Benjamin returned from the Babylonian captivity, they were too few in numbers to drive out the warlike Edomites, and had to try to squeeze into the very little territory they had left. It was too small for them, So what was left of the tribe of Judah took the little territory remaining around Jerusalem, and the tribe of Benjamin was pushed to the north. They couldn't move just next door into Samaria because that was occupied by the people the Assyrians had settled there. So Benjamin had to leapfrog over them into the vacant territory of Galilee. That the apostles and the majority of Christian converts came from the Benjamites of Galilee should not surprise us. For when the kingdom was split in two upon the death of Solomon, God said that he would leave Benjamin with Judah, so that the house of David should have a light before them. And in Christ's time, the people of Benjamin were still the light bearers. In the New Testament, all of the apostles were of the tribe of Benjamin, except Judas Iscariot, the only Jew among them, who came from the village of Kerioth in southern Judea. Iscariot is a corruption of the Hebrew Ishkarioth, man of Kerioth. Paul tells us that he, Paul, was of the tribe of Benjamin. And all of the other apostles, except Judas Iscariot, were from Galilee, where the tribe of Benjamin had settled after the return from Babylon. This is confirmed by Jesus Christ himself. In Matthew 15, verse 24, he said, "I am not sent, but unto the lost sheep of the house of Israel." In the 10th chapter of the Gospel of John, Jesus tells the Jews, "I am the good shepherd, and I know my sheep, and am known by mine. But ye believe not, because ye are not of my sheep, as I said unto you. My sheep hear my voice, and I know them, and they follow me." From the Savior's own lips, we have proof that the Jews are not of any of the tribes of Israel. Note carefully that he does not say that their unbelief keeps them from being of his sheep. He says the exact opposite, that the reason why they do not believe is that they are not of his sheep, not of the house of Israel. Christianity and Judaism are completely and irreconcilably inconsistent. Whichever one is right, the other must be wrong, for they are mutually repudiating each other. A great part of Jesus Christ's reported words are his denunciation of the Jews for their religion, which he tells them is not that of the Old Testament. In John 5, verse 46, Jesus told them, "Had ye believed Moses, ye would have believed me, for he wrote of me." And in Luke 16, verse 31, Jesus said, "If they hear not Moses and the prophets, neither will they be persuaded, though one rose from the dead." He was right, of course. He did rise from the dead, but to this day they are not persuaded. It is clear, therefore, that we did not get either our Bible or our Christian religion, either in whole or in part, from those who were Jews, either by religion or by race.